Welcome to Salon Talks. I am Mary Elizabeth Williams, and I am definitely the Rhoda, but it's okay because I am here today with the great Mira Sorvino. You know her. She is an Oscar and Golden Globe winning actress for Mighty Aphrodite. She's been in a million other things. She's an activist. We're going to talk about that. You know her from films like Summer of Sam, Mimic. I want to ask you about Mimic because I love Mimic. Romeo and Michelle's High School Reunion, as well as a ton of television shows. Lady Dynamite, Modern Family, Condor, and now she joins the cast of Sony Crackle TV's Startup in its third season as NSA agent Rebecca Stroud. You can stream it right now. Hi, Mira. Welcome.
Hi.
So you come into this, the first two seasons of this show are really about the startup, are about getting this enterprise off the ground. And this season, it's up and running. There are a lot of intense things happen, and then you walk in and shake things up.
Well, I mean, in the very first moment of the first episode, you feel like you're in a different show because all of a sudden you're seeing these commando, like, you know, Delta Force guys or, you know, Navy SEALs or whatever they are, looking for these 3 canisters, which are chemical weapons. And at the end, you realize that they've been sold. They're gone. They've just killed all these guys for nothing. And they zoom in on the computer that they were sold in, and they were sold on ArachNet, which is the dark web service, internet service that this startup is all about. You know, earlier seasons were about GenCoin, the sort of the currency that they had created, and this one is really about the service itself. So I come into their corporate offices, which are now beautiful and glossy and look so hip and cool, and I march in sucking on my weird little like throat lozenge, and then I take it out of my mouth, I put it into a little balled up tissue, and then I proceed to threaten everybody in the boardroom with all the leverage that I can if they don't open their gates to me and the US government to try and track this illicit activity that's happening on their site or on their service. And I am quite persistent.
And this whole season is just you trying to get them to play ball with them, but also, as with every character on the show, there is more to you than meets the eye. We can say that much, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, for me, Rebecca Stroud is a person who's, you know, my past was actually explained to me, and we actually did shoot one version of a scene in which I reveal it, and they ultimately decided that it made me less intimidating to know this sort of painful past about me, so they cut it out. But I still have it as the core of why she is the way she is, which was that her mother was poisoning her via a sort of Munchausen by proxy situation. You know, because she loved her so much, she would make her sick to keep her like at home, to keep her invalid, to keep her sort of infantilized so the mother could keep her close always. And so my trust in people is about negative 2,000. And I have devoted all of my allegiance and my personality and my whole family identity with the U.S. So it's Mother USA for me, and people are not to be trusted. And I have a mission, I have an allegiance, and I will do whatever it takes for the good of the country, my country, right or wrong, and I might do a great wrong in order to try and prevent a great wrong.
And you've got, as you say, this incredibly idiosyncratic character. It's great now that I know it. Like the whole season makes a lot more sense to me. It's really interesting knowing now that all of the things that we see your character do and all of her quirks and behaviors. Now it's really coming together.
Well, she won't eat at any place where she thinks she can get sick. She's terrified of getting sick now, so she only eats this one, to me, looking very gross meal. It's kind of like a chicken burger that she gets at this place that's never had a proven case of foodborne illness, and she eats the same meal every day, and she unfolds it the same way, and she has to make it just so she can't eat it unless it's in its proper alignment and all the edges are straight and the bun is just so. She's very OCD. And, you know, originally he had sort of toyed with making her sort of on the spectrum, and, you know, I sort of felt like, well, I think that her behavior is created, not born. So I think she has all these neuroses created by the mother's treatment of her, and now she tries to take control of all these small elements in her life because they give her a sense of groundedness so that she's not flying off the planet, you know.
And OCD is often a trauma-triggered mental illness, so good choice. You have said that it was the writing on the show that really roped you in. that you were just so intrigued when you saw the first 2 seasons that you wanted to get on board with it. So then you get to go toe-to-toe with some of these incredible actors. You have one particular scene with Ron Perlman that just looks like it was a complete joy to do, because it looks so tense and terrible.
I know, he's so wonderful. I mean, the funny thing is he's such a great actor, and then in this show he plays such a narcissistic bastard and a very manipulative person, but you still like him because he's interesting. You know, he's always so charming and interesting, but he sits me down for the dinner meeting you're talking about, right? Mm-hmm. And he immediately goes straight for my jugular, or my Achilles, which is my loneliness. And he knows that I'm not with any man or woman, you know, seemingly I'm alone in this world, and he's questioning it. And immediately it's like a punch to my gut, because that's her Achilles, is how very desperately lonely she is and how frightened she is of human connection, but how much she inside wants it. And so then she fires back, you know, all the things that she can do to him, you know, all the things she knows about him, how she can freeze his assets, how she knows dirt on him and all this stuff. But he's gotten to her, he's rattled her cage, and he does it so simply. He's such an expert, relaxed actor, and it's just wonderful working with him.
Yeah, it just, it's a really fun moment to see 2 pros going at it, and him, and that's so part of who his character is just this guy who knows right what buttons to push every time. So both of you, one of the things I was thinking when I was watching this is both of you are you refuse to be typecast. You've both been in Guillermo del Toro films. You've both done a lot of horror. You've done classic comedy. You've done romances. You've done thrillers. You've done procedurals. Mira, there's no one thing where you say, oh, that's a Mira Sorvino.
Right. That's the kind of actor I always wanted to be.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that, because it feels like that must have been a very conscious strategy. You've done all these different kinds of accents. You have an accent on this show.
Right.
You're
and
this character.
The director said he wanted her to have a trace of a Southern accent. You know, she's been away from there for a while, but, you know, it's still in her. And then I said, was there anyone that he wanted to sort of point me to as a kind of template? And he said, well, actually, our producer. And we had a producer who was very gracious to record all of the words that I spoke, not with the performance, but just the pronunciation of how she would say each one of the words that comes out of my mouth. And then I would practice them, and then I would, you know, perform them with my own obvious, you know, performance of them. But I got to the point where I could improv as the character, which that's when you've done all the work, is that when you can be the character extemporaneously and you don't have to just be working on words that you've worked on the accent. Like I've done a British accent several times, and you know, the first time I did it, literally I would have to spend hours working on monologues so that not one possible syllable was off, because the British are very precise. And you know, it was one of those ones where I had to have a classic RP, received pronunciation, accent, which is actually a taught accent at RADA. I mean, actors learn this very specific, common British pronunciation. And if I got one beat of it off, I knew the British would be like, "Ha, American, American." You know, so, but you know, there comes a certain point where you've kind of imbibed it and you've marinated in it enough that then you can start doing it without speaking the lines. You could do it, you know, anytime.
And then the next thing you know, you're on Lady Dynamite. And you get to say, you know what, I think that was your...
Oh, that was my idea. Well, because the way that all came about, that was so crazy and fun. Like, I came in and you know, the showrunner was like, I said, you know, so I was working on like doing a voice for the character, and I thought it would be really fun to do this like high voice that I created, but then I came in and I met Maria, and Maria, the star of the show, has a really high, tiny voice, and she's like, oh, well, okay, well, let me hear the other voice. And then I had this like low, weird voice for the housewife character on the little sitcom thing. And she's like, okay, why don't you do that voice as the actress in the role in the sitcom? And then when you're backstage by the craft service table, come out with your real voice. And it's that high little voice. And you're going to out Maria, and she's going to be completely freaked out, Maria Bamford. So I was like, oh, yeah. And then wouldn't it be funny that it turns out she was British? And she was like, I love that. And so then I was like, and I could do like, you know, the out damn spot speech. I love that. So we have this whole part with all the perfumes of Arabia. And just like all this crazy stuff is happening. That's how you... really fun.
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, that seems like the kind of show where everyone, she just gave so much freedom to be crazy.
And in the second season, I did that crazy sort of Star Trek-y and like hive queen stuck in the subterranean cavern with the fake rocks and the egg, and I come out and kiss the sword. It was so nuts.
I love that
with
show
the
so
antlers,
much.
like it was nuts.
I love that show so much. So you've done all these different characters. Is there a part or a type of a movie that you're still, oh man, that's what I really want to do?
Musical, because I love singing and dancing. And I once got cast in as the third replacement on Broadway in Cabaret. And, the sort of, I don't know, it was in like maybe 2000. And it had already been played by two wonderful actresses. And I think I would have been replacing Jennifer Jason Leigh. But then they switched it from a 6-month commitment to a year commitment. And at that time, I couldn't see clear to giving up a year to the stage because I was still doing a lot of films. And I've always regretted it. I've always regretted not doing it because I did a vocal audition. I passed the vocal audition, and I had enough jazz and dance to play the Liza Minnelli role. And I've always regretted that.
It's still on Broadway, Mary.
You could still do cabaret.
You could absolutely still do cabaret.
So now I have 4 kids and they're all in school. So I have to have really strong reasons for like making everybody move. But maybe
You could do like a summer.
Yeah, I could do if I could do like a 3 to 6 month commitment on something, or maybe even a whole year is better then, because then they go to school for a whole year in New York. Like taking them out of school for 3 months is really hard now. So if they did a whole school semester, 2 semesters, that would work better. But anyway,
I feel like we've got this planned.
Okay,
I feel like we've got it worked out. So, all right. Aside from all of that, that's a big part of your life. But then there's this other part of your life, which has really been particularly amazing over the past year. I saw on your Instagram just recently you said, a year ago, I couldn't have imagined I would be part of this community, that there would be this group of people around me. Mm-hmm. We are in a really different place than we were a year ago.
We are.
What's changed, Mira?
Well, a year ago, we were these voices in the wilderness, speaking our truth, having no idea what would happen to us for speaking out. I literally, the night before the article came out with Ronan Farrow, I thought, okay, I may not ever work again as an actress. I may be blackballed for speaking out. What will I do? Well, I have expertise in human trafficking, and instead of being a goodwill ambassador for the UN, maybe I could get a full-time job as a special rapporteur on human trafficking and just work on that, or work with some group that does anti-human trafficking work. But I was like, that's really the only expertise I have besides acting. I do public speaking, but like what subject, really did I have except human trafficking? So, I've done a lot of legislative work and a lot of advocacy on human trafficking, and I care greatly about it. So I was like, that's what I could do as a career then. But I was like, how will I afford school? How will I afford our house? How will I afford on a UN salary? That's not evident. But then I was like, well, I guess they could go to the UN school, which is free to the UN members. I was literally like just riffing about what I was going to do with my new life post outcry, because I was afraid that I would no longer have any kind of an acting career.
You thought this might kill your career.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I thought that, because nobody whistle blew, people didn't do that. You never saw people coming forward and doing that kind of thing. And instead, we were the tip of a tidal wave. And to date, over 90 women have come out against Harvey Weinstein alone, let alone James Toback, Louis C.K., Roger Ailes, O'Reilly, all of these people, Matt Lauer, all these incredibly powerful people who thought they were completely, Les Moonves, completely protected by their bastions of corporate and entertainment power, and they got exposed for what they had done, which is very good.
And that's just in the
but
entertainment.
But that was just in those first few months. And then since then, all of this agitation and all of this solidarity that's been expressed by millions of people across the world has been harnessed into movement that has sparked change, and we are changing things. And you and I had spoken before about that slate of bills that I was working on promoting very heavily with a number of people, along with the Equal Rights Advocates group in California, the hashtag Take the Lead bills, and we got 3 of the 5 of them passed just last month. And it took a year of constant applied pressure through every channel possible to get these pieces of legislation passed through the California legislature. And then they sat at Governor Brown's desk for a month, and then the very last day he possibly could, he signed 3 of them out of the 5 into law. And I had put a lot of my personal energy into trying to make that happen, including, calling individuals who were voting on the bills in the House and the Senate, the Assembly in California, and explaining to each office, hi, is the Assembly person there? No. Okay, can I talk to your chief of staff on this issue? Okay, can I explain to you why the survivor culture cares about how you vote on this bill, how much this means to us? And then I would go into the reason for each and every bill, and these bills made it all the way through every hurdle of the legislature, and then Governor Brown finally signed 3 of them. But he took a whole month. So I finally wrote an op-ed because I wanted him to know that people were paying attention to whether or not he signed these bills. And I wrote it for the LA Times, which I was told he read. I was told he doesn't read anything but the LA Times and the Sacramento Bee in California, won't read any entertainment industry stuff. So it'll be useless if you publish it through an entertainment outlet. And then People magazine picked it up, so it became a little broader. But basically my tenor in that article was like, what is a movement if it's all sound and fury but no action? We can't just have awareness without action. It has to be a 1-2 punch. Otherwise, what is it good for? Like, we can't just make some noise and hold hands and sing Kumbaya and then go home and nothing's changed. So if you say you stand with survivors, you stand with the Me Too culture, you actually have to put your money where your mouth is. And it shouldn't have been so hard for him, honestly, because if they met every hurdle and surpassed every hurdle, the legislature is really tough. Not everything makes it through. So the fact that it made it through all of those, there was really no reason for him not to sign all 5. But we got the 3 passed.
And as California goes, there's the opportunity for leading the nation. And what you're talking about, Mira, is not all of us can write an op-ed that gets under the nose of the leaders, but what we all can do is take action. And you
can all call your representatives, though, because I have found in my travels, because before this I did a lot of advocacy with metastatic breast cancer groups in Washington 2 years in a row, and I was shocked to learn that really you're showing up at their office and you're presenting your case for why your representative should listen to your opinion on a particular issue, on a particular bill. Very few people actually do it. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to be a famous person to do that. You just have to marshal your forces and either get there in person or write a ton of letters or make calls or faxes. But most people don't bother to let their reps know what they care about.
And there's an app, five calls. There are all different kinds of things you can do that make it easy for you to communicate with your representatives. And they represent every one of us just as much as they represent you or me.
And they actually care that
yeah.
they want to be reelected. So if you're letting them know what your issues are that you expect them to vote your way on, and most other people aren't showing up to tell them what they feel about it, then it's going to make a difference. I mean, that's the beauty of the democracy, is that it is a system that generally works that way. Not always, and a lot of times people put a ton of money into like having corporate lobbyists do their bidding. But I think voters who show up and say, this is really what we care about in my district, your district, they pay attention.
Mira, thank you so much. You're a great example to all of us to take action, and I look forward to seeing you as Roxy Hart in Cabaret in the near future. The new season of Startup is on Crackle right now. Mira Sorvino, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.